your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club.
I'm Spencer.
And I'm Marc, that spells Spark.
Your spark of inspiration to explore Game Pass.
Charging sequence at 30%, 50%, Chief, 70%, 90%.
This is Spark Pass.
Welcome to Spark Pass, your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club. My name is Marc. I am also known in the dark circles as the Great Unclean One, and I'm joined by my co-host. If you say his name 3 times in the mirror, a great evil befalls the universe. Say hello, everybody, to Spencer. Spencer. I almost did it.
Ooh, you feeling dangerous today, I see.
I'm feeling a little spicy today.
Straddling
Spence,
that line.
We're riding the line between the darkness and the light today. Spence, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. I'm tired because I didn't sleep well, but what else is new, am I right?
I mean, that just sounds like the life that we all lead these days, man. Like,
yeah, for real, though.
Yeah, that's just the life that we got going on. Because we're staying up too late playing a video game. Spencer, that's what we're doing. Absolutely. Yep. We're playing this game that we're talking about today. You want to just get right into it?
Absolutely. We can. Let's do it.
Let's do the damn thing. No more preambles. I have decided that I hate preambles, so we're not doing it anymore. God damn it. Welcome,
this is going to last one episode.
This is going to last one episode, and then I'm going to love me a preamble. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club, and the game that we played for your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club this month is The Last Case of Benedict Fox. Last Case of Benedict Fox, a Metroidvania created by Plot Twist, published by Rogue Games, and came to the Xbox Game Pass service on day and date launch, April 2023. Let's get the party started here real quickly, Spencer, with a little bit of history on Plot Twist Games.
Hit me.
They don't have any history. This is their first game. That's it. That's all you need to know. They're a studio based in Poland. This is their first game. This is the first video game they've ever made as a collective.
My favorite part is that is technically like the full detailed history. And it's like, there could have been a huge preamble of like, I did so much research and so much work on this history and archaeology. This is their first game. This is all we know of them.
Right, exactly. Basically, because I always like to do a little bit of research on like, who's the publisher? Who's the developer? What have they ever been up to historically, right?
Yeah.
This is the first game this team has ever made. Basically, all we know is that this is an indie studio of about 20-ish people who used to work for, sounds like, support studios for AAA games. And they decided they wanted to make their own thing. That's basically it. That's all you need to know.
I mean, that's pretty cool, though, to just be like, hey, you know what? We've spent enough time making stuff for other people. I'm making my own stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I love that
like,
stuff.
I love the mentality. And the first game they wanted to work on here was The Last Case of Benedict Fox. Now, the reason we chose this game, and Spencer, we've been talking about this game, it feels like for a year at this point. The reason we chose this game to play is it kind of feels like it fits both of our vibes, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're a big horror fan.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of platformers. So for us, it was like, oh man, a horror-themed platformer. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want to be doing here, right?
Right.
It's both of our interests together. So I wanted to talk first about the game in terms of its horror aesthetic, and then talk about the game, as the platformer that it is. It is a Metroidvania at the end of the day.
Okay.
So let's start first with the aesthetic, the horror aspect. And you're the expert here, so give me sort of like the bare bones basics of what you gathered on Last Case of Benedict Fox's story, its spooky vibe, all that kind of stuff.
So this is like absolutely heavily inspired by Lovecraftian Cthulhu mythos and like eldritch evils, which is very much up my alley. I love all that stuff. You go along as Benedict Fox, and you have a companion, I feel like companion's a good way to describe this.
Yeah, I was gonna say friend is probably not correct.
Yeah. But essentially you have like a shadowy, like the few times that I saw it actually kind of like manifested, it definitely had some tentacles. So you have this like Cthulhu-y mythos companion that can help you, essentially. You know, this is how you do your double jump, basically, is this thing like pulls you back up out of the air kind of and throws you again.
Right.
Is the best way I can describe this double jump. And this is kind of your connection to a limbo world of memories from people who have passed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the gist that I've gotten of it. And you have to kind of unravel these people's memories.
Yeah, Benedict is a detective, and he uses his connection to this entity, basically, to solve crimes, right?
Yeah, entity is probably a really good word for that.
Yeah, entity. I feel like...
Definitely not a
entity,
friend,
buddy.
I agree with you.
No, definitely, no, absolutely not a friend. So yeah, Benedict basically uses this connection to this entity, and the story that we're going through in the game is Benedict's last case, where he is investigating the death of his father, who just like literally just died. But when we come across him, the body's still warm, right?
Yeah.
Like he literally just died in his mansion by himself, and then Benedict and this entity sort of come together to figure out the circumstances surrounding his father's untimely passing. So that's basically the plot. Pretty much what you expected here. Like, I think they did a really cool job of building, like, the world and mythos of this world a little bit.
I feel like they did too. Like, we'll go into this later, but I did not get super far in this game because of mostly my skill level. I'm bad at these games. But yeah, like, especially with having this, you know, this entity as a companion, and very, very early on in the game, the first memory that you go in, and this is a little bit of spoiler territory, I guess, but
Fine.
It's not huge story spoilers, right?
Yeah, that's early in the game. It's cool.
Yeah, the first memory you go in, you lose the powers, and the connection is kind of, it's not completely severed. This entity is still speaking to you, but it's like weakened because the tool that you use to do this connection is broken. Mm-hmm. So eventually you have to basically get a new one from this dude who knew your father and various things like that. And essentially he is like your shop in the game, right? Like you come back to this main place of the mansion in the, you know, regular world, and he's there and has stuff to sell you and other things to say.
Yeah. Basically, the mansion that your father lived in is basically the hub world, right? You use this hub world to go to various memory sections, and you can unlock doors on various sides of the mansion to find new memory points that you can then warp through.
Yeah, essentially that's exactly right. Yeah, this is just kind of the hub world, and there are other things to unlock there, and there are a few things to kind of figure out and learn, but it's mostly just the hub, and everything that you're really doing is within the limbo world.
Right, yeah, the limbo world and the memories are sort of like where things come together in terms of, oh, okay, I need keys for XYZ thing, or I know I need something that has this symbol on it, and you run around this sort of Metroidvania world to find those things, and then you go back to the mansion, you hop out of the memory to, like, go unlock that door, or go, like, you know, I think the one right at the very beginning of the game, your father's desk has, like, a 3-symbol code that you've got to go, like, find these objects that, like, have those symbols on them and figure out the symbols and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. I think they did a fairly nice job here with the puzzle design. Like, this game very much... The energy that was coming off of this game for me this whole time in terms of just like its aesthetic, its vibe, what it felt like it was inspired by. To me, it felt like it was kind of inspired by like old like LucasArts era point and clicks. Like, I don't know if you got that vibe, but I definitely got a like, this is very inspired by like 90s PC games. Like, you can almost see that in its DNA, right?
Yeah. I could especially see that in like aiming the gun.
Yeah, I don't know so much that I'm talking about gameplay here. I feel like the gameplay kind of like goes off on its own path, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I'm more talking about just like, oh hey, here's this wacky puzzle that we tell you nothing about at the beginning of the game. We put all the tools in, we put all the puzzles in front of you at the very beginning. Go through this world and find all the solutions, right? Like that's more what I'm talking about in terms of like how it like introduces its gameplay world to you, right? Like I very much was getting a huge like alone in the dark, like that kind of vibe, right? Of like a spooky horror game that gives you a bunch of stuff up front and then tells you, you know, like,
good luck.
Good luck. I very much got that vibe off of it in the early goings, especially.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that, of just like, here's every puzzle for this one kind of section or area. Do them as you will.
Right.
And also good luck.
Yeah. The game does, I mean, it is a Metroidvania at the end of the day. The game does kind of just require you to run around a bunch and figure stuff out. Getting back to like the aesthetics and stuff really quick. I really like what they did with their puzzle design and the story, and like you can tell your dad was involved with some not so surly, some not so kind people.
Yeah.
And I really dig what they did with a lot of this stuff. I'm not normally into Cthulhu Mythos stuff at all, right? It is not my jam. I don't dig it. Like, but I was genuinely intrigued by some of the stuff that this game had going on. I think they took that classic sort of idea and twisted it in a way that works within its own little world, rather than, it doesn't seem like it's attached to the larger mythos, but it's very clearly inspired by that, right?
Yeah.
It very much felt like they twisted it into its own thing. And I think it works. I think it's a really cool aesthetic game. I think running around the mansion by yourself is a little like, hey, there's a little bit of like tension here of like, oh, all these fucking puzzles. I don't understand what's going on here. There's a feeling of being lost that is presented to you by the game's mechanics basically immediately. Of like, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. And that little mystery is cool, right? At the very beginning of the game as you're starting to figure stuff out.
Yeah. And like, I feel like that's where this kind of story and aesthetic blend perfectly with that gameplay style of giving you virtually little to no information to go off of, right? Because it feels like you really are completely lost and in like a detective's point of, all right, well, what the hell happened here?
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, it's definitely, that leans really well into that world and moments of both as a detective figuring out what happened and dealing with like all this weird mythos stuff and just being like, well, I guess this is just part of my life. Like, this is totally normal, right? Yeah, totally.
I mean, Benedict is like kind of accepted it, right? Like, he's kind of accepted, like, all right, guess I'm buddies with a demon and we're gonna solve crimes together. Like, I guess we're cool. Like, I don't know.
They're like it's like a weird cop comedy that like these two completely unrelated, not gonna get along partners are stuffed together, and by the end of it, they're buds, right?
Right, yeah. It's kind of that sort of vibe, which I dig. Like, man, everything about the aesthetic and the style and the vibe, I feel like they crushed. I feel like all this stuff is really great. And then you play the video game. This is where my problems start to come in. All right, Spence. Allow me to detail you the philosophy of a Metroidvania. Because I know you don't play this genre a ton, right?
I don't. So yeah, like we were talking about this last night, and it was really weird that like we both came to a similar conclusion when I have zero knowledge of this and you have a ton of knowledge. So I think
Right.
this is really fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Get your notebooks ready, kids, because Mark's about to school you.
So here's the thing, right? Metroidvanias as a genre, right? And frankly, I'm not a huge fan of the term Metroidvania, but that's the term we use, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge, like, to me, it sounds like calling first-person shooters Doom-likes, which we used to do in the 90s, right? Like,
Yeah, it
used-
really does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I wish we would call them something that's not specific to a certain game. Like, I wish we'd call them, like, exploratory platformers or something like that. But
Yeah.
we're stuck with the Metroidvania name. We're not here to argue about the Metroidvania name.
Yeah. I feel like we're getting to that point too, really quick, with like Souls-like games.
Yeah.
For you people who play those kind of games, because Mark and I don't, stop that now. Like, figure out a better naming convention that's more broad and open while you can.
Right.
Or you'll
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into this point where you're stuck with it forever.
Right, you're stuck with the phrase Metroidvania.
For the rest of time.
Yep, you can't get away from it. So let's think about some great Metroidvania games, right? The ones that immediately spring to mind for me, and I'll name a couple that are in the Xbox ecosystem too to help people out. If you only play games on Xbox, I would eventually. I mean, obviously, the genre is named after two games, Metroid. Specifically, Super Metroid, I feel like, is the game most people refer to when they talk about the Metroidvania style. And Castlevania. I prefer the GBA games, but Symphony of the Night tends to be sort of cavorted around as the favorite. And then in the Xbox ecosystem, you look at the Ori games, right? If you look a bit more broadly in a more modern sense of a very popular modern Metroidvania game, you look at Hollow Knight is another example. These are all great Metroidvania games. Let's look at what these games have in common, right? So what these games have in common is a sense of mystery and exploration that basically the gameplay loop of the game is confusion, discovery, aha moment, solution, satisfaction, right? That's basically the gameplay loop of a Metroidvania. You run around in an area, you go, I don't know what the fuck I need to do here. I know what I need, but I don't know how to get it. What the fuck am I doing? You explore this area that you don't understand. You have the aha moment of like, oh, I need that. That's the thing. And then you discover how to get to the thing. You find the solution, and then you feel satisfied because you solved a mystery, right? That's all the first part. There's that sense of discovery gameplay loop. The second thing that's most common in Metroidvania games is returning to old areas to solve the first problem, right? Like, you're asking the player to constantly come back to old areas of the map that they've already explored to do a new thing now that they've earned a new ability from solving some other thing, right? That's something that you ask the player to do. And because you're asking the player to do that, the third aspect is that traversal and combat have to be fun. Because you're asking the player to go back through areas that they've already treaded through, and to reward the player and incentivize them to want to keep them doing that, you have to give them something fun to do in the downtime. And that is the combat and the movement. Last Case of Benedict Fox is a Metroidvania. I think they do a very nice job on the first part. The first part of, like, confusion, mystery, discovery, satisfaction of finding the result of, oh, that's the fucking thing I need to do.
Yeah.
Right? They definitely do the second thing of go back to previous areas and, oh shit, now I have a triple jump, or now I can jump higher, or now I have like some games use like a grappling hook or like a jetpack or, shit like that, right? Yeah. I think they do a pretty nice job of the second part. The third part's not there. The action and the platforming and the combat, the stuff you do in between to keep you occupied while you're figuring out this mystery stuff, it ain't there, man. It just ain't there. Like, what do all those games that I listed earlier, Super Metroid, Ori, Hollow Knight, what do they all have in common? The movement is fast, and it's fluid, and it's fun. This game's movement is choppy, it's clunky. The jump arcs feel off. Like, I'll just say they feel off, right? I'm not a game designer, but I have a pretty good vibe on game feel. I jumped one time in this game and went, ooh. Like,
I think you described it to me as floaty, which
feels
is
floaty.
kind of how I felt too. It was like, it didn't feel definitive when I would jump and like where I was going to land and how I was going to land there, right?
So I'll tell you why that is. Their jump mechanic in this game is like a press-hold jump mechanic. So if you press A, you'll do a shorter jump, and if you hold A, you'll do a longer jump.
Oh.
Right? So
That
if
makes
you just
sense.
So if you just tap the button, you'll get this little hop, and even if you do a double jump, you'll do these two little hops, and you might not be able to reach a taller platform, right?
Yeah.
And that feels frustrating when, like, oh, okay, I did the thing. I know the thing you want me to do. I had several moments like this in the game of, like, I know what you want me to do. I see what you're doing here. You want me to do long jump, short jump, and I can get to this platform, right?
Yeah.
The imprecision of the difference between that long and short jump and how long you need to hold to do the thing, it feels imprecise. It feels floaty. It feels kind of sluggish. Like, there's a ton of stuff like that. The movement, like, just literally things as little that seem as insignificant as, like, his running animation.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know sounds like this is the piddliest little bullshit in the history of mankind, right? But, like, even his move animation, the way he moves, his sort of locomotion feels sort of sluggish and stilted, right? Like, he just sort of, like, stops and starts in animations. And some of this comes down to, this is a team of 20 people, right? They maybe didn't have the time or the budget to focus in super heavy on stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I know small teams have done successful work in that before, right? So to me, I see that and I go, oh, okay, their attention was elsewhere, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They were just, that was one of the things that couldn't get the focus that they wanted to give it maybe. Either,
Right.
you know, they were just better at other stuff, so it was easier and faster to get done. Or it was just like, look, dude, there's only so many hours in the day. I can only do so much.
Right, exactly. Just the movement in this game feels bad. Like, just straight up. The movement feels bad. The combat feels clunky. Like, I know you, whenever we were talking last night, you were expressing some frustrations with the combat. So I'll let you go.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I didn't spend a ton of time in the combat before. I was just kind of like, I just hate this. But it felt like, you know, a lot of the combat was more focused on you need to just, like, perfectly time every little thing. And if you make a slight mistake, you're probably going to get hit. And then, like, the first boss that I got to, I died a couple of times after getting hit, like, twice. And I was like, I don't really know what to do about this exactly. And I don't feel like dying 700 times to figure out the like, slight puzzle I need to figure out to kill this boss. But something that they do have, which I really liked, and I think I really liked it because I didn't like the combat and it kind of let me bypass it, right? Is there's two settings that you can turn on that are kind of like difficulty settings or accessibility settings of there's no death. You just can't die. And you can turn on auto puzzle solving. Not the same thing as combat, but that is another setting that I saw in there. You still have to find all of the parts for the puzzle, but if you have, like, all the pieces that go to it, you can turn that on, and it even still gives you the option to solve it, or just say, hey, do you want to auto-solve this puzzle? Let's move on with our lives. I liked those things. I probably wouldn't use the auto puzzle solver very often, but the just kind of getting to bypass combat if you're in a place where like, all right, well, I've been stuck on this fight for like 3.5 hours. This game is not about the combat. It is about the story, and I want to move that forward. I'm going to tick this on, get past this boss, and then you can tick it back off if you want. I thought that was really nice. Because
cool,
it let me bypass the clunky combat that I hated.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when we're using accessibility features to bypass key features of the game because we don't like them, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and there is also, like, take into account of, I just wanted to progress forward so I would be able to talk about more of the game, right? Like, I wasn't in the mindset of, I want to just play this whole game and experience it for what it gives me. I wanted to try to get as much of the content as I could. And even outside of that, honestly, I kind of just wanted that more anyway. Like, I didn't like the combat and probably would have used it to bypass it if I was playing the game regularly anyway.
Right, yeah. I did not do those things because I don't know, I guess I'm just a capital G gamer like that, I guess. I don't, like, I have no problem. I'm glad that settings like that exist, right? I will never use them.
That's totally cool.
I'm more than happy to use a guide. Like, if I don't know how to do something, I'll go look up some shit on GameFAQs, right? Like, I'm more than happy to do that. That's fine. That doesn't bug me at all. But, like, in-game help features tend to annoy me more than actually just, like, going to look up the thing that I need to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, it feels like if it's coming from the game, especially if, like, oh, the old Mario games used to do this. The new Super Mario Brothers games used to do this, and it drove me nuts, dude. They had, like, a auto run, will help you finish the level if you're having trouble sort of feature. If you died, like, twice, a fucking pop-up would come up that's like, hey, man, it sounds like you suck ass.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. Like, that's, like, I don't like those either. This was very much like, it's
in the menu.
In the settings menu, under another menu. That, like, I had to go find it because I went looking for, like, just something else. Because at the beginning, it asks you, like, do you want to focus on combat or story? Like, where would you like the difficulty level to lie? And I just went with the defaults. And then I got my shit rocked a lot very early. And I was like, oh, can I just, like, turn the combat difficulty down a little bit? No, the option was combat or you just can't die and you get infinite hits on this thing, essentially. So I just kind of stumbled on it looking for make combat easier, and it turned into make combat gone.
Yeah, make combat trivial.
Yeah,
right.
but like, I like that it's there as an option, either for like, if just getting stuck in a moment and being like, I don't have the patience for this, or like, I don't have the time to get stuck on a boss fight for 5 hours in my life anymore. Like, I just want to progress the story forward. Or just for people who are like, you know, hey, I need the accessibility options to experience the game. I think those things are always good. I do hate the pop-ups in games, like you said, that are like, hey, do you want to turn the difficulty down a little bit? Because you suck, bro. And I'm like, oh. Right. Okay, thanks. Now I'm sad.
Yeah, it's one of my annoyances with Forza Horizon 5, because I've been learning how to play Forza.
I know.
I've been learning how to play Forza on a wheel, so like I'm not as good on the wheel as I am on the controller, right?
Yep.
And I'll just get my ass busted for a couple of races, and it's like, hey, you want to suck less? Forza, no, please. Anyway.
No, I don't. I want to enjoy the game and just learn to get good at it.
Yeah, I just want to learn and improve. Anyway, we're drifting here. But Last Case of Benedict Fox, I really feel like this game is so close to being a good video game. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so tantalizingly close to being like a game I can just like highly recommend and be like, oh man, sick. But the clunkiness of the combat and the clunkiness of the movement really, to me, that's the most important part, frankly. Like, because if this part isn't fun, I'm not going to give a fuck about doing the other two things. We laid out the, like, 3-part formula of a Metroidvania, right?
Yeah.
Because if your movement's not fun and your combat's not fun, I have no interest in traversing old areas, which means I'm never going to end up solving the puzzle that you want me to solve, right? Like, one thing leads to another. 3 flows to 2, flows to 1, right? That's just sort of the way Metroidvania design works, and all the successful ones do that.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like, as a studio, as a team, they were very interested in Part 2 and Part 3, almost to a point where it feels like an old PC adventure game, and I almost wonder if this game started life as that. And then they decided, like, nobody fucking plays those anymore. We gotta do something else. Like, I almost wonder if, like, it started life as that, and then sort of obviously I don't know that much of the development history of this game, right?
Yeah.
Other than it's a brand new studio, and they've been showing off the game at Xbox showcases for a year, right? That's all I really know about the development of the game, right? So I almost wonder if it started life as that and then sort of like shifted into being like, okay, Metroidvanias are popular. We had to make a business call. I don't know, right? But it felt like they were very interested in the puzzle design and the discovery, and they were not interested at all in the movement and the combat. And they just sort of went, here's some shit.
Yeah. I mean, it could be of just like, hey, we had to put something in here because we thought no one would play it without combat.
This, like, there are so many games that I feel like if they just decided to forego combat, it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about Everwild, right? It's like the premise of like, oh, we're not doing combat. That's intriguing, right? There's so many games, I feel like indie games especially, that I play all the time that are like, man, if you just focused on the shit that was good here, this game would be great. But you felt like you had to shoehorn some sort of combat in here because it's a video game. And as a result, the whole game kind of just slowly falls apart because now I'm focused on this bad combat that you don't care about.
Yeah.
Because
and I feel like...
Because it's the thing I'm doing most of the time. Combat and traversal is the thing you're doing most of the time in a Metroidvania game.
Yeah.
So if that feels bad, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and like... I kind of feel like if they wouldn't have had to focus on the combat, maybe we would have had better platforming and better jumping, and it would have been a lot more fun. And we would have just been like, cool, I'm just running around this space, finding puzzle pieces, putting together a puzzle, learning a cool story.
Envision a world in which this is like a like an out of this world or an old Prince of Persia, right? Where like the combat is the environment.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like you're fighting dudes, right? Which, like, the enemy design in this game is pretty uninspired anyway. It's mostly just, like, shadow dudes and tiny shadow dudes. And, like, the combat design is very uninspired. You can almost imagine a version of this game where, like, what you're fighting is the environment, right? There's this really cool sequence right when you first enter the dream world for the first time where you have to cross this, like, little pool. And as you're crossing it, like, these little shadowy figures and tentacles and stuff are coming up out of the water. Yeah. Like that, like more stuff like that, right? Where you're like, this area is dangerous, right? Yeah. Benedict Fox isn't necessarily a fighter. This area is dangerous to be in, right? And you're more so fighting the environment than you're fighting just random duderinos, right?
Right.
You can almost imagine a version of this game that, like, if they had done that and then made the traversal feel a little bit more fun, there's something truly great in this sauce, right? Yeah. Like, it feels like you're just like, oh, there's way too much salt in this, but, like, the flavors aren't bad, you know? Like, if we're talking about, you know, food as a metaphor for video game, right? Like, there's like, this is way too bad, I can't handle this, but, like, I don't know, there's good ingredients in here.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like you can sort of do part of that by turning off where, like, combat can kill you, right? But that still doesn't fix the platforming feeling off, like you said, and floaty and, like, feeling like I don't have as much control over this as I thought I did or would like to. Yeah. And I think the other thing I ran into, and this feels more like a Metroidvania thing in general, is so much of the like dream sequence looks the same. Yeah. So I would be running around looking for these puzzle pieces. And be like, wait, have I been here before? don't know if I've been here. And then I would run past the big section that's like his dad and I guess mom. They're like these big blue ghostly figures in a bedroom having an argument. And I would be like, oh yeah, I've seen this tree before.
Right.
You know, like
yeah.
I am lost in the woods and, oh, God damn it, I've seen that vine. Come on.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh,
yeah.
okay, I didn't make any progress at all. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing sort of more... I feel like that's kind of inherent to the genre.
Yeah.
A little bit of like, I'm figuring out where I'm trying to go. Oh shit, I've already been here. Okay, mentally check that off the list. Check the map. Okay, so I know I've been this direction because I know what way I came from, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this direction, right? And it's sort of like you iterate off of that, right? Like you have to almost have this sort of like... In fact, in these games back in the day, people used to draw their own maps. That's how a lot of people kept it straight in their heads, right? Of like, oh, okay, I know I've done this. I know what's here, right? You know, you hear about old Castlevania fans all the time, like physically drawing on paper and pencil these maps, right?
Yeah.
Just to keep it straight in their heads. I'm pretty decent about being able to keep track of it mentally, but there are definitely moments of like, oh, fuck, I've already been here. Oh, I don't remember which directions I've already gone. Ah, shit, I guess I just have to explore all options at this point again, right? You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, a thing just sort of inherent of the genre, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right, because I had kind of a similar thing whenever I tried to play Hollow Knight. I would go to a place and I'd be like, wait, I've already been here? Son of a bitch, I've already been here.
Right.
Where the hell is this one stupid little thing I need, and how have I not already gone to it when I've like feel like I've gone back and forth 9 million times?
Yeah, and Hollow Knight doesn't have all of the clunky combat problems this game has, right? Like,
Yeah.
Hollow Knight is fun to run around and traverse and hit shit, right? Like, that's a fun game to move around in. So, like, if you're feeling the same frustrations in a good version of this game, like, yeah, maybe the genre is just not for you, and that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But
this one I did feel like there were times where I was like, oh, I should be able to go that way. Like, looking at a ledge, I was like, I can probably jump to that. And then it was just like, no, you just can't. It would be like, oh, you're close, but not quite. You're close, but not quite.
There's a balance that you have to strike in the style of games of like making things feel attainable, but also far enough away that you visually know, oh, I don't have the thing that I need to get to this platform yet, right? There's an art to that. And I definitely feel like Last Case sort of like, it probably... They're a little too close, right? Like, if it was, like, more visually obvious of, like, oh, well, I obviously can't double jump big floaty my way up there. I must get something later. Because that's a very common thing in Metroidvanias of, like, oh, I get an extra mobility option to get up to an even higher platform, right?
Yeah.
And they visually show you, oh, hey, here's the higher platform. You can't quite get here yet, but you keep this spot in your brain, right?
Yeah.
Better games even give you a marker system. Hollow Knight does this. That's like, oh, okay, I'll put a marker here, and I know that this is a thing that I need to remember later. I'll come back later.
Yeah,
right?
That would have been cool. To like be able to mark on the map, like, I've been here, it's not there, go the other way. Or like, oh, I need to come back here to remember to jump up there, because I can see there's a thing up there, I just can't get to it yet.
Right,
That would have been nice.
A lot of more modern Metroidvania games are starting to do that. They give you a little bit more control over the map and being able to mark points and going, okay, I know I need to come back here at some point.
Yeah.
I'll move on, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I think it would have fit perfectly with the vibe of this game too, of being like, oh, okay, you're an investigator, you're a detective. You've already got this sort of like book of plot points that he's like, you've already got that there, right? So it'd be very easy for you to just go, oh, okay, here's the map, and he can put little markers on the map.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like I'm going to assume that the detective probably has a notebook he can write things down in.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think overall, as we sort of like, I feel like we're starting to like wind down a little bit here. Just sort of overall, I feel like the game sort of delivered on about half of what we wanted it to here.
Yeah.
Right? We walked in the door going, we want spooky aesthetic, horror aesthetic that Spencer can be into, and gameplay style that Marc can be into, and then maybe we can like we meet in the happy middle, right? Unfortunately, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this, I think we got there on the aesthetic and the setting and all that stuff, and the puzzle design I think is really nice. Gameplay doesn't get there, which is a shame.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Like, they absolutely nailed the aesthetic, and I loved how much like I could interact with just like stuff in the world. Like, there's a radio you can turn on and tune it to like a station, and it's like old 20s music. There's a record you can put on a gramophone and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, this is great. Like, they're really doing a really good job of nailing the time, the vibe of like the mythos, without specifically saying like we are dealing with Cthulhu or any other specific thing like that. It was just like a perfect like shoot in that world, right? Of we have these things. And then I tried to fight something and it wasn't fun. And then I tried to jump and I couldn't calculate the jump properly. And I was like, oh, I don't like this part. I just want the story. Can I just have the story, please?
Yeah, and the answer is like, well, yeah, kinda, you can, but like...
Yeah, but even then, like I said, with the auto puzzle solving, you still have to go find the parts for it, which means you still have to deal with the jumping and the platforming and getting lost in the map. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be stuck here for the next, like, 10 hours trying to find these other two pieces of, like, this plate thing to open one door, and that may not even be the thing I need to be focusing on right now.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you have to interact with the worst part of the game at all times.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, it's the thing that you, again, for this genre to work, movement and combat have to feel fun and crisp, or at least be something you're willing to put up with.
Yeah.
Right? Like, at minimum, you have to be willing to go, okay, maybe this combat isn't the best in the world, but, like, I can deal with it, right? That's kind of how I feel about Ori, just as an example, right? I don't think the combat in Ori is the best in the world, but, like, oh, okay, it's simple enough, I can deal with it, it's good, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the traversal in that game is really fun. I think traversal is really where Ori crushes it. But yeah, you have to interact with these portions of the game, in last case of Benedict Fox, and they're easily the worst parts of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just really didn't feel like this got there for me. I certainly didn't think it was awful, and definitely as a first effort for a brand new studio, you can definitely see a ton of potential here, right? Bring in a couple combat design experts, guys, and you'll probably, the next thing will probably be really cool. Because I feel like they've got the basis of some cool stuff here. They just don't quite get all the way there in terms of, like, this genre specifically. I don't know if they're interested in continuing to make Metroidvanias, or if this is just the thing they made first and they're going to work on something else next, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? But I feel like they got like 2/3 of the recipe, and they're just trying to fucking fix the rest of it with like, oh, okay, I got some crackers in the fucking cupboard here. I guess we'll shove those in. Like, you know, and it just doesn't really work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. It's kind of a bummer, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world, you know, like, I don't know, maybe I could fight through some of it and deal with it for the story, but like at some point I hit a moment of like, I just no, I don't want to fight through something that I just am not enjoying at all to experience the story, especially in the year 2023 when I could probably just look up like cutscenes only on YouTube, you know what I mean, and like get the only part of it that I enjoyed.
And keep in mind, this is also on Xbox Game Pass, where there's 300 other video games you could play.
Exactly.
For free right now, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into final grading. I feel like we're kind of there. I think where I land, and I probably sound like I've been full thumbs down all the way, like through this thing. I think where I land is thumbs in the middle. I think I'm thumbs in the middle because if I were to tell somebody about this game, I would go, oh yeah, they have a really cool world and good puzzle design, right? I think the puzzle design is genuinely good, right?
Yeah.
And if you've played other better Metroidvanias, like, again, we talk about there's a ton of them on the service, right? Like, if you've already played Ori, if you've already played, like, some of the cool cinematic platformers that are on Game Pass, like Planet of Lana and Inside in Limbo and that kind of stuff, if you've already played all that stuff and you're looking for something new, this will tide you over. This game's about 10-ish hours. I think it's like 10 to 15, somewhere in that range. This will tide you over, and, like, the combat's not the best, but the puzzle design and the world design is cool, right? I think if you're into this genre, you can get some enjoyment out of it, right? But I can't full thumbs up it, right?
Yeah.
Just the combat design is too clunky, the movement doesn't feel great. It doesn't get there for me, so I can't full thumbs up it, but I also wouldn't go avoid, right? I think there's stuff here to see that is cool.
Yeah.
And I think that you can have a fun time with it, even if you can, like, accept the game's shortcomings, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where I land, is thumbs in the middle. Spence, where you at?
I would give it a thumbs in the middle too. Like I said, I don't feel like this was the worst game I've ever played. Like, it wasn't unplayable. It wasn't total garbage. I just didn't vibe with part of it, you know? Like, it just wasn't my thing. And that's totally fine. Not everything has to be for everybody, right? But if you are into, like, even less like the Metroidvania style of games, or just looking for a Metroidvania to tide you over, but you're really into, like, Cthulhu Mythos or creepy, dark stuff, just go in and try the combat. If you don't like it, tick on the setting where you can't die, and you can at least bypass that section of it, right? And the world and the vibe of it is enough to pull me in for that alone, right? If you're into that kind of stuff. Right. Because I think it's a cool story that's being told. I think there's cool things being done with that part of it. You just kind of have to get past the other parts to get through to it. And either maybe you're just better at the combat than I am, or you just turn on the invincibility and just kind of have to get used to how the platforming works. Because as I played more, I did get kind of used to it, but it was like, okay, I'm still missing this, like, extremely easy jump that I should not be missing, like, one every 5 times. Yeah. And I'm making the same jump over and over again because I'm running back and forth on the map like a madman.
Yeah, I feel like the best description I can give of that, it feels like you're trying to hold an old jalopy together going down the road. Like, okay, this motherfucker's got 200,000 miles on it, but we're making it to work today. Like, that's how controlling your fucking jump arcs and your combat feels like in this game. It's just like, all right, we're holding it together. We're doing the bare minimum. I'm hitting 50 on the freeway, right? Like,
yeah, and even then I'm going, I'm bouncing everywhere on the road.
Exactly right, yeah. So yeah, we're both thumbs in the middle on this game. I think it's a game that can be worth your time if you want to check it out on Game Pass. But again, depending on what you're interested in, right? Like, if you're interested in horror stuff, there's not a ton of other options on Game Pass, to be quite honest with you. There's a handful.
Especially if you're into, like, Mythos and Eldritch stuff, right? Like, there's not a lot of games like that to begin with, let alone on Game Pass.
Right. So, like, if you're into that shit, you know, absolutely lock it down. If you're into Metroidvanias, I would ask you if you've played the good ones first, right? If you've played the good ones, then yes, absolutely, go check out Last Case of Benedict Fox. But this is not a game that's going to set the world on fire. I will tell you, though, I was impressed enough with plot twists to go, okay, I'm intrigued to see what they do next.
Yeah. Are you going to go back and play any more of this, you think, in your free time? Because it sounds like neither of us finished the game, which...
No.
Yeah.
No.
Which happens.
Didn't finish the game. Yeah. Probably not, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I feel like I played like 4 hours of it. So, like, what? That's about halfway, right? Like, I kind of feel like I'm good, you know? Like, I have a very hard time accepting bad platforming in a platforming game, right?
Yeah.
Like, if your movement feels bad, I'm not interested, right? Movement is like the most important thing for me in a platformer, right? Moving around has to feel either fast or it has to feel precise, right? I'm good with slow if it's precise.
Yeah.
Right? It just depends on the style of game, right? Because like the old Castlevanias, I'm not talking about the like Symphony of the Night era stuff, like the old games, movement in that game is slow as fuck, but you know exactly where you're going, right?
Yeah.
There's a precision there. They're like, oh, okay, I'm slowly, carefully approaching danger, and I know exactly where I'm gonna land when I jump, right? That kind of a thing. It's just a game feel deal for me, and like Last Case of Benedict Fox just has bad game feel. It nails everything else, bad game feel, and I have a very hard time putting up with that.
Yeah.
You know, so I probably won't finish it. Where are you at?
I don't know. I haven't decided because I really want to know more about the story. And I'm like, do I go back and play it to say I played it and get the achievements and stuff? Or do I just look it up on YouTube? Because I am very curious where the story goes because I think the story was really cool and interesting.
Yeah. No, I think they did a nice job with the story stuff. I have a hard time putting up with bad game feel. So like,
Yeah.
if I'm interested, I'm definitely like YouTube all the way if I want to know what happens in the story.
Yeah.
But
I feel like that's the way I'm leaning, because, you know, like we said, bad platforming in general is kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. And then on top of like, I just don't really like running back and forth 1,000 times, hoping I stumble across the piece that I need, you know, and like looking at the map, I can be like, well, I haven't been there, but well, when I get there, there's a door I can't unlock. So how do I unlock that door to move forward at all? And it's like, I don't want to do this. I just want to know what happens in the story.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think it's a neat thing that they're building. I just the gameplay aspect of it isn't my favorite type of thing, right?
I totally get that. Again, I will be curious to see what the studio does next.
I am too.
Like I think they've got an aesthetic here that I dig, and I think they did a nice job with their world building. It's just, you know, again, you make that staff 21 and you add in like a good combat designer from an old studio or whatever, they're gonna be fine, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you just dodge combat in your next game altogether, one or the other, right? Like
honestly, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like that's the way that I would like to see it go, more than better combat of just like, dude, just get rid of it and like. The world is the combat, you know, like we said, the tentacles coming out of the water trying to grab you. Maybe there's sections of it that like you have to make a more precise jump, and with no combat focus, we can focus on those precise jumps. And like if you don't hit the precise jump, you get hit with a like spike that's up on the ceiling, that kind of thing. I think that would be way cooler and lean and add way more to this game than. All right, well, here's combat with this enemy that you have to parry once, stab it a couple times, parry it again, stab it a couple of times.
Yeah. It's not too dissimilar to the problems we had with Scorn, if you sit and think about it.
Yep.
Right? Like, the world building of Scorn is really cool, and the graphics and the aesthetic and all that stuff is great. Gameplay feels bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same problem.
Yeah.
Right?
It really is.
Like, and I don't really know if that's just, like, a problem inherent of the horror genre. I don't know. Like, I don't play enough of these games to know, right? But like, it's one of those things that's like, it's weird that it's happened twice now. You know? Like, it's just weird that it's happened twice. I don't know that we can draw any conclusions from that. But
I don't think it's indicative of the horror genre as much as maybe the people who make horror games are trying to focus more on the puzzly aspects and just the world and the atmosphere, because that is a lot of horror, is the atmosphere and how you can make someone feel without a jump scare or without like direct gore in their face. Like if I can scare someone when there's literally dirt nothing happening but you walking down a hallway, I've done a good job. And they're really, really good at those things. But then they have to make combat in their game because, well, everyone else has combat in their games. We can't just not have combat. Like, It feels like you have to have it in a video game now, which is kind of a bummer because I don't feel like you do have to have it in a video game. We've had a ton of video games in the past that did a great job without it. I don't think combat is bad in video games, but I don't think it's a necessity to make a good video game. And I think that's what we're running into is like these people are good at puzzles. They're good at horror. They're not good at combat.
Right. Do the thing you're good at, right? Accentuate the positives, hide the negatives.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I have played a ton of games that I'm like, man, this is a really great moving story. Or, man, this is a really tense, scary thing, right? You know, like, there's a ton of games that do that job excellently without a lick of combat.
Yep.
Right? And I feel like there's definitely like some genres where that's accepted. Adventure games, it's totally accepted, right?
Yeah.
You know, we use the sort of derisive term walking simulator, right? But like the adventure game genre has no problem with no combat whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
We're totally cool in a game like Edith Finch, right? Or like That Dragon Cancer or whatever, right? Like games like that. We're totally cool with just nothing combat there, right?
Yeah.
But it
and
feels
I think back to Firewatch when you mentioned that.
Firewatch.
How many times did I think there was going to be combat in Firewatch? Right? Like how many times did I think I was about to round a corner and suddenly have to like brawl with some dude in the woods? And then it never happens. But it builds up to that feeling the whole time. And you think it's going to happen and then you're on edge ready to fight, but you never have to. Just do that.
Right.
That's so much better.
That sort of a thing. Yeah, exactly. Right. I feel like that's something that like a lot of these indie devs could stand to learn, right? Like I understand you want to chase, you know, genres that are popular, right? I totally get that. You got to sell your game and you got to have a log line that's going to make the average indie gamer interested, right? And if you say the word Metroidvania, there's a bunch of people that come flocking in droves, right? I totally get it. But some games are not better served by combat. If you're a adventure puzzle-centric game, there ain't a thing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Focus on that. Focus on the thing you're good at. And I think that we've seen a successful version of that during this show in Firewatch, and I think we've seen an unsuccessful version of that show now, of this thing happening now twice with both Scorn and Last Case of Benedict Fox.
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting, like, how we've sort of, like, because we've done enough shows now that we're sort of, like, starting to come to conclusions about, like, game design, which is kind of wild. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you that, like, there's just some games that probably, honestly, would be better served by just going, you know what? Combat can live in the combat-centric games. We're going to do a story thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would personally have absolutely no problem with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, because, like, the few things I got to in combat for this game were a very spongy enemy that I had to stab, like, 85 times, or shoot them one time with my flare gun that takes forever to recharge.
Yeah.
These little, like, dog creatures that you hit one time and then they're dead. And at one point I killed 3 of them in one hit because they were bunched up. So I was like, well, that was just in my way. Yeah. And then a big boss fight. And I was like, I didn't need any of these. Right. None of these feel like they added anything to my experience. If anything, they took away from it because I had to deal with it.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. Like, I'm totally cool with not every video game having combat in it. Like, it's not a necessity at all.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like this is a game that would have been stronger without it. So, like, you know.
Yeah.
We'll see where if we end up having more, like, experiences like this. I feel like that's a really interesting thesis.
You know, like, where we're going to run into an interesting one with this? And I'm jumping very far ahead, so I apologize. But I feel like this is a good time to talk about it. One of the games that we're going to play for the next show is Amnesia: The Bunker. Amnesia has never had combat. Yeah. They were like the pioneer in the 2010s of horror games where you don't fight, you run and hide. And now we have a gun.
Right. Amnesia has combat now. Right.
So I feel like this is going to be an interesting point of back to maybe this is a problem in the horror genre, or maybe this is a not every game needs combat moment of, well, I've played all the other Amnesia games with no combat. Now I'm about to play one with combat. Which one's better?
Yeah. Be interesting to see.
We're going to have more data points.
Right, exactly. We're going to have more data points on this thesis.
And by the
really
end of
nice.
next month's episode, I'm going to be back here with a whiteboard and a cigarette going, it's over here, look over here, look. I'm just full on Charlie Day. Like, this, do you see this strand? Look at this thread. This thread follows this thread over here. This is going to be chaos.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, we'll come back to that thesis here in a second. Real quick, Spencer, before we get into what we're doing for next month, which I'm very excited about next month's show in amazing and horrifying ways. Other video games outside of the one we played for the show this month.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything?
I played GTA Online for approximately 3.5 hours the other night.
Tell me about it, buddy.
It was GTA, that's for damn sure.
It's actually, it's interesting you bring that up. GTA 5 just came back to Game Pass this past week.
Yeah, it did. This is kind of like the time where they put it on there. If I had to guess, for like a couple months, and then they pull it off, hoping they get some sales. It seems like Rockstar's done that with a lot of their games.
Yeah, I think this is the third time GTA 5 has come to Game Pass. The first time it was on there for a month. It was literally like a month.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I think it was like 3, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like they're cool with doing these like monthly or maybe 3-month kind of. I'm hopeful that like, hey man, GTA 5's a fucking 10-year-old video game at this point. Like, just put it on there for a year.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be okay, right?
Yeah.
Just chuck it on there for a year, and then if it leaves after a year, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Just leave it up there for a year.
And it kind of makes sense this is a time that it's going to pop on there because they just added some new missions online.
Right.
And it's one of the sets of missions where a lot of the like new things that they add in this game, you don't buy like an expansion for it. You usually have to get like a very large thing in game. Like sometimes it's buildings, sometimes it's a submarine. This time it's like this like advanced war airship, essentially, that you have to buy and then buy a part of it in the game. Mm-hmm. And you can earn all of the money in game.
Yeah.
You'll have to grind a little bit, but you can earn every cent you need for it in game. Like, we tallied it up this weekend because that's what we sat down to do. Was like, oh, well, we could check this out while we're playing.
Sure.
And it's like 4.5 million in-game dollars to buy this everything you need. I have never spent money on the game, and even like buying stupid shit along the way. Currently, I'm at like right under 4.
Right.
So we were like, well, we're not going to be able to get enough to do it this weekend, but we could, spend some time, do some missions, get money, and then do it another time type of thing. So it makes sense that this would be a time to put GTA 5 and online on Game Pass, right?
Right, yeah, for sure. There's definitely a logic to it, especially when they're coordinating it with new content. And I feel like the last time they put it on Game Pass, it was a similar sort of situation.
Yeah, and it's like you can buy the money for in-game with real money. They call them shark cards. And that could be kind of the goal of, hey, we'll pull you back in online for free. Oh, do you want to do the newest content? It's going to cost you $15.
Right,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe you're hooked, and then you'll buy more stuff, or you'll buy the game when it leaves the surface, kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the only video game I've played, I think. Yep.
Fine.
That's it.
Dude, I wish I could come with you on this journey of GTA 5. I just can't do it, dude. Like,
it's fair. It's not for everybody. I get it.
I saw Ryan McCaffrey, who's one of the hosts of Podcast Unlock, IGN's Xbox Pod, that I listen to regularly. Whenever GTA 5 came back to Game Pass this week, I think he called it one of the top 10 video games of all time. And I just look at that and I go, really? But
in terms of good or in terms of revenue?
like, but, like, really? Like, GTA 5, the game that is basically the same as GTA 4, just bigger and with a little bit more stuff?
Yeah, like, listen, I
Like-
like GTA, and I like GTA Online. It is not one of the top 10 video games in the world. Absolutely not. There is no chance.
Yeah. No, I saw that take and I was like, I mean, I understand it because, like, IGN rated it a 10, right? Like, it was beloved when it came out. Like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like, top 10 video games of all time? I don't vibe with that.
Mm-hmm.
But granted, I'm not a GTA fan, right? I played 3 and Vice City back in the day and went, I'm good. Like, I played them both, I beat them both, and I went, okay, I had my fun, I'm done with this franchise. There's nothing else. Like, San Andreas comes out, and it's like, you can eat cheeseburgers and become larger. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, I guess. But, like, it sure is the same gameplay loop of, like, clunky shooting, driving. To me, like, my thesis on GTA is, like, GTA is a game that does everything mediocre. I would rather play a game that does a handful of things well.
Yeah.
Right? GTA is like this big, gigantic sandbox where you can do everything you want to be a fucking criminal, and it does all those things in a sort of mediocre way. If I want a racing game, I'll play Forza. I won't play GTA. If I want a shooting game, I'll play a dedicated third-person shooter. I'm not playing GTA, because the shooting in GTA has always been ass. If I want, like, a crime lord simulator, there's a ton of those great, like, more getting deep into the business metric end sort of games, right? GTA is a franchise that does everything, but not as well as a game that's dedicated to doing that thing, right?
Yeah. I know,
I'd rather
like,
just play the games that are dedicated,
Yeah. I know there are definitely people who, like, hardcore play the game and are, like, real about it. GTA has always been, like, the perfect background noise video game for us, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of what pulled us in. Was we watched people goof around in it on YouTube videos, and I was like, we could do that with our friends and just shoot the shit, right? And it was like, oh yeah, this game's on sale for $15, and was super easy to just, like, you play a little in the background while you talk about your week at work, or, like, whatever's going on in your life. It's, like, the perfect game for that. And then it has, like, brief moments of, okay, we need to focus to get through this little fight, in this this heist that we're doing. Okay, cool. Now I'm driving a real fast car down the road just fucking around.
Right, yeah. No, for sure. I can totally see that. Like, and it's also, like, one of the small handful of games we've managed to get your wife into. So,
Yeah.
like that definitely helps, right? Because there's, like, Kate plays some stuff, but she plays, like, a handful of things.
Yeah, and it's definitely one that's, like, not all of us, but, like, a group of us all enjoy together. And it's, the nice thing I think about it is you can kind of get as into it as you want to, right? Like, if you just want to have, like, a car and drive it real fast all the time, great. You get that one car and that's all you ever have to do again, unless you want to do more. It has, like dedicated races you can do, death matches, and, like, jobs and missions that you can do. Like, it kind of has a lot of different video game aspects in one place. And I think that's the nice part about it, is it's something that most people can find something in that's like, I can at least do this for a couple hours with my buddies, right?
Sure. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. Or you can be like, I'm doing all the heists and I'm going to be the best at them and I'm going to make all the money in the world. Like, it's like, the heists feel like raids to me, and, like, Destiny and stuff, of, like, I'm getting real into it. Or I can find somebody who's really good at it and be like, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. Please carry me.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's all I've really played. I've, between last episode and this episode, I got a 3D printer. So a lot of my free time has been learning about 3D printing.
Yeah. I might have some projects for you at some point in my life.
Let me know, dude. I'm learning, man.
We'll figure it out. But yeah, no, dude, I saw your video that you put on I think I saw it on Instagram, but you probably put it everywhere.
Yeah.
Of you setting up your 3D printing and
Oh,
your
yeah.
first 3D printed thing, and I was like, oh hell yeah, dude! Like I've always
Yeah.
been interested in it, but like I don't have either the space or the patience to deal with it.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
It was a little bit to set up, and even now, like I'm looking at the area that it's in, and I'm like, if I ever expanded this anymore, I would have no fucking room. Like I would have to reorganize this whole thing if I wanted to have like one of each type of printer, right? Because there's like resin, and then the ones that use like filament and stuff like that.
Right.
And I was like, I could not fit both of these on this workbench. I don't think very well.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure. It's super cool though. Like I just think that world is really fascinating. Like I love miniatures. Like I've painted some myself. Don't really do it a ton anymore just because I have shaky hands, so it's not easy for me to do, right? Like I understand, like I can totally get why people find it comforting, right? Like I'm like, oh okay, I can pass an hour or two away just like painting on this thing. I find it stressful because I have shaky hands.
Yeah.
Right? so I just go like, oh
Oh, the face was
the whole
perfect. Now it's not
Right.
because I tried to give this
Right.
guy an eyeball.
right, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like for me with shaky hands, I have a hard time with it. But like big stuff I have a fun time with, right? Like
Yeah, for sure.
Back when I played Warhammer briefly, because Warhammer's
Jesus.
way too fucking expensive, and I like realized it quickly and I got out, right?
Yeah.
But the brief time that I did play Warhammer, I mostly focused on big ass things because for one, big things are cool. Big fucking tanks and buildings and shit. First of all, one, that shit's cool, but for two, they're easier to paint.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you have shaky hands, right? So
Yeah.
I greatly prefer big stuff. Like, give me a big dragon, I'll go fucking nuts. But little guy, bad time for my hands.
I have mostly painted pretty little things, right? And I have some buddies down here that own an arcade bar, and they just opened a new location. And two of them are really into 3D printing. Like they 3D print a bunch of minis for D&D events they have. And I went to the opening of the new spot, and one of them was like, "Hey man, you've been painting minis, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm getting into it with my D&D game." He's like, "If I have something that I already printed and want to put up in the bar, will you paint it for us and we'll put it up in the bar?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude, that sounds awesome." He's like, "All right, well, I have a V from V for Vendetta if you want to paint that." I was like, "Sure." And I was expecting like a little like 2 foot, like maybe like foot tall dude. This thing is like full on like action figure, like Barbie sized action figure thing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be wild to paint compared to like little tiny dude that's not even a foot tall that I'm used to.
Fucking wild.
Yeah, it's really cool though. Like the whole thing is like resin printed, and I'm like, this is badass.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's rad. Hopefully everybody go follow Spencer on all the social medias. MPI creates on everything. He regularly posts the mini stuff that he's painting, and I think it's all very cool. Like I've been getting into I've been playing a Starfinder campaign for the last year, so like we play it all online, so there's no need for me to have like physical minis and dice and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it sure is cool to look at.
Yeah.
So
they're cool to have, right? They're fun.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, go check out all of Spencer's socials if you're interested in that stuff. He posts that shit constantly, right?
Thanks, dude.
And yeah, I think it's sweet.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, that's all I've been doing. My life has like been full dive into learning about printing the past like 2 weeks since the thing got in, right?
Right.
Like it got here and I was like, all right, well, this is my entire personality now.
We'll see how long that lasts. I've definitely been there.
Yep. It's
for
like
sure.
adding into other parts of it though, right? Because like the whole reason I bought it was for minis, because I was buying and painting minis, and they're like $5 a pop. So like, and that's the cheap ones. They go up to like 15 and 20, and it's like, well, by the time I've bought all the minis that I've painted in the last less than a year that I've been painting, I'm like, I spent more or almost as much as I probably did on this whole fucking printer setup. And these are like, I'm printing like 14 cents a piece.
Right.
Like, it's definitely a barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
But it's, in the long run, definitely a better plan.
Yeah. More economical for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
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 That's it. There's other stuff that I've looked at that looks interesting that I want to play. And like I looked at my shelf the other day and I was like, well, it's July 5th. Yesterday was. It's officially spooky season. I could play some of these spooky games I haven't played yet.
Let's go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So let's.
What else have you played other than Benedict Fox? Oh, and the little bit of Halo we played together. I forgot we did that.
We played a little bit of Halo on the stream. That was a thing that we did as well. Yeah. I think we talked about that on the news show.
We did. So go check that out.
Yeah, go check out the news show that we did last week. We talked a little bit about Halo Season 4 there. So the main thing in my life, Spencer, you got a 3D printer. I got a fucking racing wheel.
Yeah, you did.
Look at that. So this is the Thrustmaster T128X.
It's the what now?
The Thrustmaster T128X.
All right.
That's the name of the company.
That's a hell of a name.
I recently sold my old real life car. Most of that money went to the bank, but I was like, I'm one of these kind of people that, like, if I see a ton of money in the bank, my brain just starts going.
I could buy fun things.
I could buy fun things, right?
Yep.
So I always try to find, anytime I have a big influx of cash come in, I always try to find one fun thing that's not gonna kill me, and then I'm done, right? Like, okay, I bought the fun thing, no problem. So my brother and I, on our streams, we've both been getting back into NASCAR, and we've been doing, like, a simulated league in this old NASCAR sim that we used to play called NASCAR Racing 2003 on PC. The game my brother and I were very into when we were kids, right? Like, we've invented our own fictional racing series called the Star Cup series. And there's lore because people love the lore. It's a whole fucking thing. If you want to check those streams out, twitch.tv/superstarbros every single Friday at 10 o'clock. We have come up with this bizarre racing league together, and I've just been really getting into racing games again, right? Like, I've been playing some Forza Horizon 5. I downloaded NASCAR Heat 4 on my Xbox because it was on sale for like $6, right? And I've just been playing all these racing games. So I was like, you know what? I have a little bit of spare cash for the first time in a long time. I've been getting into all these racing games. Fuck it, I'm gonna buy a wheel. And I did research for a good long while, and everyone was like, yeah, this is the cheapest, like, entry-level wheel that doesn't feel like dog shit, right? You know, a lot of entry-level wheels have, like, no force feedback, and, like, it just feels very floaty and gross.
Yeah.
This is a joy to drive, but let me tell you, Spencer, driving on a wheel with force feedback is a very different experience than playing on a controller.
Oh, I bet.
It's completely different. It feels like a different fucking planet, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I very much regularly all the time spin out, crash, feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Like, it's a very different experience. You actually have to, like, it kind of feels like on the controller, like, oh, okay, you're playing a game, you're having fun. It feels like you're actually physically wrangling this car around. Like, after the first session of playing Horizon 5 for like 3 or 4 hours, my arms hurt.
Oh, man.
Like, because I felt like I was, like, fucking wrestling these cars, right? And you genuinely have to learn things about actual driving, right? You have to learn about, like, how the road feel and when you brake and braking in straight line and then turning and letting go of the brake at the same time, right? Like, you have to learn, like, real race car driver principles, right? And there's definitely a learning curve to that, right? It's definitely not, oh, hit gas, car go fast, right? But just for, like, and I'm not a huge immersion guy when it comes to racing games, but it definitely does feel cooler, and it gives you, like, a newfound respect for all of these vehicles, right? So, like, cars that I've driven a million times on controller in Forza, I'm trying them out now on the wheel, and it's like, oh man, this is so different, right? Like, you can actually feel the different. I think probably the best way I can describe it, it lets you feel the character of the vehicle a lot more.
Okay.
Because you can feel very like distinct differences from car to car.
Sure.
Of like, oh man, this thing feels completely fucking different than this other car that I tried to drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if anybody out there has ever been interested in getting into wheel stuff, I recommend it. Forza Horizon 5 apparently is the first game that feels like the first Horizon game that truly feels great on a wheel. They've mostly kept the wheel support to motorsport because like it's a more like Horizon's supposed to be a more casual game, right? Horizon 5 is the first game with great wheel support. For me, it was plug and play, super simple. Start in a slow car. Go get you a B-class car that you like. Start slow. Don't do what I did and rocket yourself around in your normal S1 class, S2 class, like fucking rocket ships. Don't do that. Learn slow. Learn how to actually drive. Brake in a straight line. Let go of the brake and turn at the same time, so you get that sort of... Think of your accelerator and your... this is from a YouTube video I watched. Think of your accelerator and your wheel as, like, tied together by a string, right? The more you're hitting the accelerator, the less you can turn the wheel. Otherwise, you're gonna just fucking spin off into outer space, right?
Makes sense.
That kind of a thing. So I've been learning that. That's the main thing I've been up to.
Yeah.
Is just like trying out various racing games with my new toy. But I've played some other stuff. I got back into Magic Arena briefly. I've been like, I had a little bit of a card game itch that I needed to scratch, so I played a little bit of Magic. Still working my way through Tears of the Kingdom. I just don't have time. Like, that is a game that I want to like... I am going to sit in front of this for 16 hours, right? Like, it's not a game that I want to, like, just play for an hour or two and then I'm satisfied, right? Mm-hmm. If I play Zelda, I want to play Zelda. That's my day, right? Yeah. And I just haven't had time to do that lately. So, I'm not as far into Tears of the Kingdom as I want. The last thing I did, I gave Fallout 4 another shot, but this time on PC.
Okay.
Because I wanted to fuck with mods. Still kind of feel the same way I felt about Fallout 4 as I did the first time. But fucked around with some mod support a little bit, because I was just kind of interested in it. Just like, I've never done that before, right? It's super easy. Like, it's not hard to do. A lot of that stuff you can do through the Steam Workshop now. And then through Bethesda's mod service, which I don't remember the name of. But a lot of that stuff's super easy to do now. And it's cool. There's a bunch of... I watched a bunch of YouTube videos that are like... People are still making, like, different gameplay modes for Fallout 4 all through mods.
Yeah.
And, like, lighting support and all that jazz. I just wanted to mess with that stuff, and the game was, like, $5 on Steam on a sale, and I was like, I just want to fucking mess with this, right? So I messed around with it, and I had some fun goofing around with mods for a little bit, but I didn't really do anything too crazy.
Yeah.
That's about it. Those are most of the vast majority of my time has been dedicated to the wheel, because like I want to learn.
Makes sense.
This thing. Yeah, that's been
It's
the
the
vast
new
majority
thing.
of my time.
It's the
Exactly.
new fun thing that you have. I get you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the main thing I've been focusing on. Spencer, speaking of new fun things, I've got not one, but two new fun things for us to check out next month. Because next month on the show, we're doing our classic. We did this last year, I think, for the first time, and I really love the show. It's one of our favorite shows. It's our I pick, you pick indie week, right? Where I pick a game, Spencer picks a game, and we both play both. And we sort of keep it to like somewhere in the 2 to 6 hour range. Short, bite-sized indie games. What's like a fun thing that if you've got a weekend, right, you can go check this game out on Game Pass, right? I feel like that's sort of the ethos of this show. And it was one of my favorite shows we did last year, because I love the little bite-sized games that you can find on Game Pass, that you can like play them in a day and go, yeah, that was fun. I feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Right? I love those, and we're doing 2 of them. Spencer, you already said the one you picked.
Yep.
Tell people again.
I'm making Mark play a scary game, kids. We're playing Amnesia the Bunker.
I'm a big brave dog. I'm
I am trying to convince Mark to record himself playing some of it to see the jump scares, because Mark has very good jump scares when he gets scared. He doesn't like them. He doesn't like them, but I find them entertaining.
Bro, I get jump scared in fucking Gears of War. What the fuck is gonna happen to me?
Yeah. So, maybe on some social media, whichever one, because there's 9 billion of them at this point. Tell him that you want that.
Yeah, we'll probably start a Threads account for Spark Pass here soon. We might migrate to that because Twitter's a hellscape.
Yeah. And where else are we gonna go?
And where the fuck else are we gonna go? Yeah, so Spencer's gonna have us play Amnesia the Bunker is the one, right?
It's just the newest one.
The name Amnesia just makes me want to vomit.
But, well, hey, at least this one you have a gun. You can shoot at the scary stuff.
Okay.
Got that going for you.
Spencer, you've watched me play Halo. I'm not good at shooting. Shooting is no protection for me.
Yeah, and I have no idea how the gunplay is in this game either, to be honest with you. It might be terrible.
We'll figure it out together, buddy. So Spencer picked Amnesia the Bunker, which is a game you can play in around 5 to 6 hours. I picked Super Short Boy. I have been interested in this game since we talked about it on one of the news shows, just because I think the name is awesome, and I found out it's super short. So I was like, okay, it's a perfect fit for this show. The game I'm bringing to the table is Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, which is apparently a little like rogue-likey action game that takes about 2 hours to play, and it's about a turnip man who's committing tax fraud, and I'm super down with that. It sounds silly and fun and light. And I definitely wanted something to combat the fucking horror show that I'm gonna have to deal with, right? So silly, fun, light game, and I think Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is a perfect fit for that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about both of those games on next month's main show. So if you're interested in playing either of those games, or if you've played those games before, you can let us know on social media, every social media on planet Earth, at SparkPass. We're trying all of them now, because I don't fucking know which one's good. Leave us a comment in the YouTube video, or we recently found out on Spotify, there's a little Q&A section. If you let us know on Spotify, if you're listening to us through audio, anywhere you can comment, YouTube, social media, comments, whatever. If you have thoughts on Last Case of Benedict Fox, I'd love to hear them. Or if you have thoughts on the game that we're playing next month, if you have thoughts on Amnesia the Bunker or Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on either of those as well.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
That's the gist of it. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's always a pleasure to make this show. And we're making one of our favorite ones next month. So hope you guys are excited. We'll see you then. Take care.